So thank you for coming. I'm going to talk about the trends going on that we're seeing and what's the realities of what we see our customers facing and invariably what you're facing in your businesses and your lives. There's been a shift that's gone on in very recent years, and that's probably why you're here. 20 years ago with B2C, there was this shift that happened and businesses started to embrace digital. And it's hard to think now in the consumer world of any kind of company that doesn't have a website that is transactional. I imagine it's very rare that you come across a company that you want to buy something, you go and find it online and you can't buy online from that. Whereas in the B2B world, what we've got is a whole range of companies that might just simply have a catalogue in effect as a website, but nothing truly transactional, or if it is transactional, it's not a great experience. And so what's driving this shift as one of the factors is this, and the way your lives are working outside of your office hours. You've got so used to the consumer world and then driven by an experience in mobile for ease of commerce, that when you go back to your day job, and when purchasing is part of your day job, or might even be all of your day job, it's not about them buying for fun and your entertainment from the consumer world, it's about this is your job. And you go back to what might be described as clunky websites and not particularly joined up experience to be able to buy and transact online, it starts to build frustration. And so this is where the first mover advantage for firms that are really embracing digital come. But there's an invisible force out there that's making it harder for you to do your job in the B2B world. And it's probably best illustrated by, can I see a show of hands if you have the word e-commerce in your job title? So maybe at best 20% of the audience. So that's quite advanced to have that in a B2B world, to have e-commerce. What about the title? Is there a digital in your title? Okay, same kind of people. So outside of that, and if this was a B2C seminar, everybody would be putting their hands up that have e-commerce or digital. Hands up if you've got marketing in your title. Okay, so again, very small amount. And so this is the challenge you face. That indicates that structurally and mentally, the mindset in your business is not digital. And so you have not only this battle and drive to want to move to digital, but you've got to battle internally to get that to a point where the business understands it's a change. So what I'm going to arm you with in this presentation is some data points to help you. Now you can try to bludgeon people in the organization with data, but use this and to reinforce it with the real life stories of businesses like Brimec, for example, that are doing commerce really well in the B2B world. And there's no reason, even though your business has very diverse needs as many B2B businesses do, there's no reason why you can't move that into a great experience for your customers as a mobile-first environment. That's your challenge. And so purchasing's changing, and so some of the stats to support what's going on. 71% of purchases start with a generic search, not a call. You're probably aware of that. Your customers, when they start to look for what they want to buy, they go online to begin to research it. 70% are looking at social media content, advice and feedback. So they're going to the web to see what other people are saying about your products or services that you're producing in a B2B context. And 57% of the purchase process is completed without a direct supplier. Now, obviously in B2B, the purchase process is a bit more difficult or complex, typically, compared to a B2C environment. But that still doesn't stop the buyer getting to a certain point in the online world, and maybe then they move to the more traditional means of telephones, fax even. Who still accepts fax as an order mechanism? Anyone brave enough to put your hand up there? But it's valid. You don't want to just chop it off, right? Because you might lose customers who simply don't want to buy in a digital world. But the simple reality is that more people are beginning to move online. And if you look in the B2C world, where we are now is about 17, 18, 19% as an average across all businesses, and now 17% is pure online of companies, of a consumer company's turnover. So that's the kind of shift that you go as an average, which means that there are obviously pure play out there. So imagine being a pure play B2B retailer or company. Interesting concept. Obviously, that's a big leap, but imagine that. And that's the point. What you might start to get is disruptors in your industry that spot that opportunity because not enough companies that exist in that sector have adopted digital, and they start up a pure play alternative to what you currently offer. That could be a real threat to your business. So customer experience is one of the key measures, and as we're all so used to the ease and convenience of buying through Amazon as consumers, who would describe your purchasing process from your customer's perspective as simple, very easy to do? Anybody want to put their hands up there? Nice. That's cool. Is that when they do it by fax? Yeah. So that's the point. It's about how, when you're starting to think about digital, this is your opportunity to take advantage of this shift, but also use this as a blank piece of paper to work out how do your existing systems and processes and how can they map in to doing something really different that is of great experience and great ease to your merchants, because you haven't got this legacy debt of your digital commerce piece. You can start afresh and really think creatively. And using flexibility and flexible platforms, that's a key element that you have to take into account. And so 38% want flexibility to purchase 24/7. So often, I know in B2B it can be hard because of some of your ERP systems, the way they do updates. They might start doing the updates at 6 p.m. So somebody can't then go on their mobile device and do an order then because the system's locked out. So you need to think about how does that impact the way a buyer now wants to buy outside of traditional working hours. And brands that embrace this and are engineering their businesses and their systems to support that are then enabled to start to take and win market share from their competitors. And a faster process, how often must it be for customers to find the process simply of being able to buy from you? How hard is that? So it's like you have net promoter score, but customer effort score. How much effort is it as a measure for someone to buy something from you? And so that's a good way to start to look at it. And then how, when you're introducing digital as a transactional process, how much effort is it there? Perhaps that's one way to sell to the board about these are some of the advantages that going digital help make. Because if competition, or if you as the first mover advantage start to make easier ways to buy, then what happens is customers are naturally, because human behavior, we gravitate away from pain towards pleasure, are going to start to do that, especially where price comes in. The interesting thing about price is the differentiator here is experience and less price. Clearly, price is important, but what you'll see is with our solution is that you can be smart about the way you price and who you price to. Often you may not want to expose the prices of the individual products to people who come to your site. So within Magento, you're able to create your own selective price list depending on who they are. It might be organisationally restricted, might be sub-organisational. You've got that power to be able to do that simply, quickly and easily, to be able to expose different price lists and also apply in preset discounts. 71% would switch suppliers to one with similar prices but a better experience. It's a bit of a duh fact, isn't it? If you're going to get a better experience for buying a same product, especially if you're selling in a largely commoditized product area of what your business does, then the more you make it easier for somebody with a great experience, the more likely they are to move to you rather than your competitors. And so urgency within that, I will save you doing yoga-like positions and doing an eye chart test. I'll read what this says. So this grid says, do you think your business will be moderately or massively disrupted to date in the next 12 months as a result of digital? Okay, and this says, even this is blurry, I need my eyes tested, in the use of digital technology, a major driver of business strategy for your company. Is the use of digital technology a major driver? And so in terms of those two questions, where do you think your business lies? Well, these are, can anybody see that at the back? I'll quickly read out the names for those who haven't got 20/20 vision. Insurance, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, retail, technology products, telecommunications, banking, industrial products, construction, engineering, consumer packaged goods. So the different sectors and the way that they've rated themselves as being digital ready. Interesting to see, where do you rate in that grid as you look at that? And then what percentage of your B2B customers do you expect to be buying from you online in 3 years? This doesn't mean that they're buying all the time online, or it doesn't mean all your customers, but compare how you are as an audience. So less than 50%, we've got 48% of the companies think in 3 years' time, customers will be buying from them online. 50 to 74%, 23% think that's happening, and 75% or more. So there's a big belief within the B2B world that their customers are going to be buying online. So this means that right now they're investing in technologies to enable that to happen. Okay. And so this really is a tipping point in terms of invest now or your competitors are going to do it. Invest now, take first mover advantage. And then take the bulls by the horns, because 43% of B2B buyers prefer to buy directly from the brand. So this is interesting. And we've got Brimec here, who are not a manufacturer, they are a distributor. So out of interest, who here is a distributor? Okay. Who here is a manufacturer? Okay. Or wholesaler, right? So we're seeing a trend, and this is also happening in the B2C world, is that consumers like buying from the manufacturer because they feel that closer relationship. They expect the manufacturer to have greater product detail, greater information, greater intelligence and ownership about their product compared to, say, a distributor. But where distributors add value and wholesalers is they can amass all different kinds of products and create it as a service, provided it's done well. So somebody like Brimec has taken this as an opportunity and invested heavily in digital to be able to provide real ease of service, speed of delivery. So it gives and cover a whole range of different products from multiple different manufacturers. So it's a one-stop shop in effect for customers. So that's how they're surviving, despite this trend where customers are starting to gravitate towards direct to the manufacturer. So what that does is give you an opportunity as a manufacturer to both continue with your distribution models, but also be able to look at how you can sell direct to your customer base as well, managing that tightrope between channel clash. And so there are ways and models you can do that, where you apply and recognise, so you reward your distribution channels in equal measures, even when somebody buys direct from you, to keep the channel sweet, because you don't want to kill that as your source of revenue, unless it's not going to really impact your business. What you see here is this is from Forrester, and this looks at the traditional methods of the way people are buying traditional manufacturers. So B2B traditionalists, distributors, resellers, direct trade, and then wholesalers is the traditional way. But what Forrest has identified is that manufacturers are starting to look at all these other channels to market and the ways that you can do this to be able to reach digitally to your customers. And one example of this is Abbott in the US. They do a diabetes real-time testing kit, so you can understand your insulin levels in real time, and it goes to your app. And so they are now selling, although traditionally, as a pharmaceutical-based company, they've gone through these very traditional channels of distribution that are very etched in stone. All of a sudden they've started doing this as a product because they recognise some of their products don't need to go through a distributor or a wholesaler. They can actually go direct to the consumer because they're consumer-ready products. And so this product is sold through traditional methods, but also direct to the customer. And they've engineered a consumer-like experience in their website for people to be able to do that. And they're on Magento doing that. Now, one big advantage, so you've got the invisible force of internal inertia around B2B, but one massive advantage you've got compared to B2C is personalisation. And the reason why you've got that is because of all the customer data that you collect. It's a given in the B2B world, unlike the B2C world, is that you have to set up an account for a customer to want to buy things from you. It's just accepted. And so you have an immeasurable amount of data around the client. You know what their credit limits are and what you've decided to give them. You know when they order, where they order, how often, what kind of bulks, what kind of products. So the opportunity to get smart about personalising that is immense, and so much more. A B2C marketer would be biting their arm off to have that level of information about clients. So as you move into these digital channels, remember and ask your questions. How can you use your customer data in a smart and efficient way that will increase your opportunity to do upsells, to do add-ons, to do recommended products? If they're looking at one area, your site should be automatically recognising that and displaying complementary products as additional to increase your attachment rate. You need to be looking, and again, when you're going to sell to the board about going digital, about what the expected lift and attachment rate is for your different types of products that you're selling. And that would immediately start to give a clear business case. If you can show there's going to be a 12% uplift in attachment rate, you can monetize that compared to not doing it at the moment. Personalization, so as we see, price lists, previous orders, projects, teams, so you start to know real individual data. Because in Magento you can do negotiated orders, you're building up a history about individuals. And so who here has field-based account teams? Organisation. So that is a real opportunity to be able to use some of the intelligence you're gaining from the website. So the account owner, before he does a field visit, can log into the system and see what's been the latest real conversations gone in the systems, what's been going on. And then they can have an intelligent conversation with the customer when they get there. And also, you start to move what the field-based person does into an assisted seller. So they start to teach your customers digital. So as you're thinking holistically about making digital work in your business, think about the compensation plans or KPIs you're going to set your field-based salespeople so that they love and adopt digital and push and drive it rather than resist it. So think about a KPI which says you want to help drive a customer to show your salesperson has to, with an iPad or a PC, go to the customer's site and show them how to order, get them familiar with how to use the system. So you need to make sure you put in training for your salespeople to be able to know and do that. Put that as a KPI that they measure, and you'll very clearly see also the uplift in sales. So then when the salesperson visits the next time, they're then talking about what have you got on your cart at the moment, or your wish lists, or your favourites, or your regular orders. Then what they can have this conversation around is the upsell around those products, or educating the customer on what else they can do and sell around that that's useful for the customer. So you're changing and skilling up your salesperson to sell in a digital world. The reality is some salespeople may not be able to accept that. So either you have to then recognise they'll just stay with the laggard type end customers and keep them on that, or simply you need to manage them out of the business in a way that works for both of them. But it's coming. Digital's there, so they have to accept that as an opportunity. So within that, you need to then look at what is it that your customers are doing, and so how do they use it. And if you've got building type supplies or anything like that, your customers are out in the field the whole time. So how are they going to be buying from you? Mobile. So start with a mobile first and work backwards into other to be able to make sure that you nail that one, where they can then either scan for the product, they can then get videos online to show how they install the product that they've bought. Compared to, say, the account manager who's taking as a seller themselves, they're going to have their laptop, so you need to make sure it's a rich experience. So having fully responsive is a great way to do that. It saves you reworking. And then the procurement, who, again, they might want to buy outside of traditional office hours. So you need to make sure that the links to your back-end systems don't stop the online transactions happen. So you might either store them up in batches and then release it in there, but you still want them to be able to buy online at the point of when they want to buy, not when your systems are saying they can. And research has shown that the average cost per sales by channel, so the top performers, if you compare new channels, digital, compared to traditionals, there's always a drop. And this is because as you are building out your digital, opportunity to look at your processes and what lies behind that, to re-engineer the processes around how do you make it more efficient and use digital to leverage that, so the cost per sale. So again, this is a data point you can then compare and contrast your business to build a business case to the board to help and drive that adoption. You've got clear hard facts as to why digital, let alone the gut feel that it just makes sense to go to digital. You've got hard data points to support an argument there and investment. And so by 2018, Gartner reckons 25% of companies that consumerize the B2B digital commerce sites will gain market share. Again, that's kind of a no-brainer. If you're first to market and make a great online experience, you're going to win market share over your competitors. And this is an interesting one. McKinsey see that digital leaders get 5 times more revenue growth than their peers. You can argue the semantics, whether it's 3, 4, 6. But absolutely get revenue growth compared to what they're doing if they're not investing in digital. And 30% increased sales versus competitors without effective personalization. Speed is of the essence, and that's where traditionally it's been quite hard to do e-commerce systems in B2B. What we find with Magento is because of some of the complex legacy environments, because of the flexibility of Magento, integration becomes quicker and easier. It's not a walk in the park. There's absolutely complexity that has to get dealt with, and that involves time. But what we see with our customers on Magento, 5 to 8 months is a very typical time in B2B. It depends the extent of the integrations that you need, but we even have some customers who are able to get up and going in digital in 3 months. And so the way to think about digital is to think about what is it that as an absolute minimum that gives a great experience do you want to start with, get that going, and then build and iterate on that based on what your customers are using the system of to be able to refine. So if you try to do everything a big bang all in one go, you won't necessarily know what your customers are going to react to. So start on what's called this MVP, this minimum viable proposition. That doesn't mean it's basic. What it means is the minimum of what you want to give a great experience to your customers. But don't try to put all the bells and whistles on it straight away. Start to iterate as you then move along. And that's about working closely with your systems integrator or your in-house dev team that do that. Staffing resources, there's going to be implications to staffing like sales, to like sales processing and sales orders. So think about the impact of that on your business. Work out, will that impact headcount, or can you reallocate the skills of what the headcount are doing in order to make that really work well? And that organisational inertia that we had. So it has to be on board from top level down, because it won't work as effectively unless you have true exec buy-in throughout and true exec sponsors that really drive and push it. With our B2B solution, we're focused on making out of the box as many features as possible, so you don't need to do extra customization. This is why the speed to market is so much quicker than some traditional commerce systems out there. We've got proof around it using experienced partners who know B2B. There was a survey done by the internet retailer B2B top 300 companies. Magento has 49 of the US top B2B businesses as customers, and the nearest competitor's got 23. And that's run 2 years in a row. We've been the leader and actually grown our leadership gap. So Magento, while you may not know us for B2B, actually 30% of our business is B2B. It's over 30%. And we're the market leader in B2B. We may not just be known at that, but we have a ton of customers who are doing B2B. So we know B2B, and more importantly, our partners really know B2B, the B2B specialists. And so an example of some of the customers using it, Heidelberg has 10 million SKUs. They sell giant printer systems that do newspapers that last for 50 years. So they keep spare parts that date back 50 to service machines that are 50 years old. Think of the complexity around that. Unipart, as we know, the car parts ordering people. Brimec, who you'll hear about. And so some of the key reasons to start to summarise: consumerize your website. Really think about the consumer experience and how you can personalise to drive up revenues, stickiness, attachment rates and upsells. Flexibility. Can't stress the importance given the complexity of systems that you might typically have. You might have some legacy systems 20 years old that you still need to keep going. Flexibility of an open platform to be able to do that quickly and easily is super important. And then specialised partners to be able to do it with a lower total cost of ownership. And with that, I will leave you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.